The Family and Medical Leave Act. The Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, allows qualified employees of covered employers to take unpaid, job-protected leave for certain family and medical reasons. This fact sheet has basic information about which employers are covered by FMLA, when employees qualify and can take leave, and what rules apply when employees do so. Covered employers. The FMLA only applies to employers that meet certain requirements. A covered employer is a private sector employer. They have 50 or more employees in 20 or more work weeks in the current or previous calendar year. This includes a joint employer or heir connected to a covered employer. Public agency, including local, state, or federal government agency. The number of employees does not matter. Public or private elementary or secondary school, no matter how many employees there are. Eligible employees. Only eligible employees, people that qualify, are entitled, allowed to take, the FMLA leave. An eligible employee is someone who works for a covered employer, has worked for their employer for at least 12 months, has worked at least 1,250 hours for their employer during those 12 months before taking leave, works at a place where the employer has at least 50 employees within 75 miles of the business. The 12 months of employment does not have to be in a row. That means any time before the leave that you worked for the same employer, including seasonal work, can usually be used to meet the 12-month requirement. If the employee had a break from working with one employer that lasted 7 years or more, the time before the break cannot be used. There is an exception if the break was covered by the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERRA, or if there's a written agreement, including a collective bargaining agreement, outlining the employer's plans to rehire the employee after the break. Leave entitlement. Eligible employees can take up to 12 work weeks of leave in a 12-month period for one or more of these reasons: the birth of a son or daughter, the placement of a son or daughter for adoption or foster care with the employee, to care for a spouse, son, daughter, or parent with a serious health condition, for a serious health condition where the employee cannot do the essential tasks of his or her job, for any qualified demand that's caused because a spouse, son, daughter, or parent is a military member covered by active duty or called to cover active duty status. An eligible employee can take up to 26 work weeks for one 12-month period to care for a covered service member with a serious injury or illness when the employee is the spouse, son, daughter, parent, or next of kin of the service member. Sometimes employees can take FMLA leave on an irregular or reduced schedule basis. That means the employees can take separate blocks of time or reduce the time he or she works every day or week for one qualified reason. When an employee needs leave for a planned medical treatment, the employee must make a reasonable effort to schedule treatment so it does not overly interrupt an employer's operations. If FMLA leave is for the birth, adoption, or foster care placement for a child, using irregular or reduced scheduled leave needs an employer's go-ahead. In some situations, employees can choose, or employers can require employees, to use accumulated paid leave, like for sick days or vacations, to cover some or all of the FMLA leave period. An employee's ability to use their accumulated leave depends on the terms and conditions of the employer's usual leave policy. Employees must go along with their employer's standard requirements for requesting leave and give enough information so their employer can properly decide if FMLA can apply to the leave request. Employees usually must ask for leave 30 days in advance if the need for leave is a sure thing. If the need for leave isn't predictable in 30 days, employees must give notice as soon as possible and ensure the leave is doable considering the situation. When an employee asks for leave for FMLA qualified reasons for the first time, the employee does not need to specifically declare FMLA rights or even mention FMLA. If an employee at a later time asks for more leave for the same reason as before, he or she must specifically mention either the qualified reason for leave or the need for FMLA leave. Covered employers must do the following. 1. Post a notice explaining the rights and responsibilities connected to the FMLA. Covered employers may have to pay a civil money penalty if they purposefully fail to post the information. 2. Include information about the FMLA in employee handbooks or give this information to every new employee when they're hired. 3. When an employee asks for FMLA leave, or an employer knows the leave might be for an FMLA qualified reason, give an employee notice about his or her eligibility for FMLA leave, and his or her rights and responsibilities connected to the FMLA. 4. Tell employees if the leave is considered FMLA leave, and the amount of leave that will be taken from the employee's FMLA entitlement. Certification. When an employee asks for FMLA leave because of his or her own serious health condition, or a covered family member's serious health condition, the employer may need documented proof from a healthcare provider to support the need for leave. An employer may also need 2 or 3 medical opinions at the employer's expense, and occasional recertification of the serious health issue. Job restoration and health benefits. When returning from FMLA leave, an employee must be returned to his or her original job or a similar job with equal pay, benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment. An employee's use of FMLA leave can never count against the employee under the no-fault attendance policy. Employers must also continue group health insurance coverage for an employee on FMLA leave under the same terms and conditions as if the employee isn't on leave. Salaried executive, administrative, and professional employees of covered employers meeting the Fair Labor Standards Act (FLSA) requirements for exclusion from minimum wage and overtime under the FLSA rules 29 CFR Part 541 don't lose their exclusion status when using unpaid FMLA leave. The exception to the salary basis rules for FSLA's exclusion only applies to an employee's use of FMLA leave. Enforcement. It is illegal for any employer to stop or deny the exercise of or the attempt to exercise any right given by the FMLA. It's also illegal for an employer to fire or discriminate against a man or woman for opposing a practice or because of their involvement with anything connected to the FMLA. For more information, visit the Wage and Hour Division website, www.wagehour.dol.gov, or call the toll-free information and helpline, available 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in your time zone, 1-866-4-US-WAGE, 1-866-487-9243.